I built my brother's entire corporate launch, but when our father had me removed to please his partners, I quietly canceled every vendor. They found out when investors arrived to an empty, locked venue. It always started with a phone call that wasn't really a request. More like a summons. Adrian, we need you on this Miles launch. It's critical. I trust you'll handle it. That was my father's way of saying, do the job, don't ask for credit, and pay whatever it takes. My name is Adrian Lawton. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Chicago. Technically, I'm not even on the payroll at Lawton and Price, the family firm. But unofficially, I'm the fixer, the cleaner, the one who makes the mess disappear. This time, it was about Miles again. My younger brother had been tapped as the future CEO since we were kids. The media called him brilliant and visionary. Dad called him the heir. I just called him lucky. Miles had come up with a high-end product line, sleek, indulgent, completely unnecessary. Dad wanted a launch event that would make a rival conglomerate sweat. Something glossy. Something impossible. That's where I came in. Of course, I said. I'll take care of it. No one asked if I had the bandwidth, or if I even wanted to do it. I didn't bother saying no. I never did. So, for 6 straight weeks, I worked after hours in my one-bedroom apartment, my own job by day, this circus by night. I sourced the venue, a retrofitted industrial museum just outside the city. I coordinated the lighting installs and got the AV contractor I'd used for a Google pop-up last year. I signed the talent, booked a local string quartet and a synth-pop act Miles liked. I even got an influencer to organically leak rumors about a celebrity appearance. Everything had to be perfect. Dad emailed once, keep it discreet. Miles is the face. That was fine. It always was. I've been the hands behind the face since I was 21. Of course, Lawton and Price didn't front a cent, not at first. I used my own Amex. I was told I'd be reimbursed post-launch as usual. $23,000 in deposits, retainers, and last-minute rush fees. All on me. I had receipts for everything. The NDA for the lighting tech, the international wire for the champagne crate, the video production team's insurance rider. Everything airtight. Miles didn't ask how it was going. He posted vague inspirational quotes on Instagram and got tagged in Forbes articles about young disruptors. Meanwhile, I was on my 4th round of negotiations with the fire marshal to allow for indoor flame towers during the final music cue. Nobody clapped for that. Sometimes I imagined what it would feel like to be thanked. Not the performative kind of thanks, man, my brother tossed out at interviews. A real thank you. The kind that didn't vanish the moment the job was done. But I wasn't holding my breath. I was the backstage guy. The one adjusting the lights while the star hit his marks. The one stitching the whole show together, only to stand off to the side while someone else took the final bow. And in a week, when the curtain rose, that's exactly what I'd be again. Invisible, but at least the curtain would go up. And that, apparently, was all that mattered. The first red flag came on a Tuesday morning, tucked inside an all-hands calendar invite. Miles Lawton, product reveal walkthrough, executive team only. I searched for my name. Nothing. No role, no guest access, no CC. I told myself it was probably a mistake. Oversight. The kind of thing that slipped through the cracks when you worked on a million moving parts. But then I checked the email again. It was deliberate. Everyone was listed by name. Legal, PR, marketing, Miles, Dad. Everyone but me. Later that day, I called Dad. Adrian, he said, distracted. I could hear a golf commentator in the background. What's going on? I wasn't included in the walkthrough, I said. Oh, he chuckled. That's just pageantry. You wouldn't enjoy it. All flash. Not your kind of thing. My jaw tightened. I handled everything that's being presented. Exactly, he said. Which is why it'll go off without a hitch. Trust me, Adrian, you don't want to be in front of cameras. You're better at foundation work. Foundation work. The call ended with a hollow, thanks, son, and a dial tone. I tried calling Miles next. No answer. Just his cheery voicemail greeting. I didn't leave a message. A day later, I got the email. Sent at 7:43 p.m. from the firm's general counsel, Marla Tate. Subject, Launch Week Strategy Clarification. Body. Adrian, per recent internal discussions, the board believes your presence at high-visibility launch events may conflict with strategic optics. We ask that you remain behind the scenes to preserve brand cohesion. Thank you for your understanding. No, hi Adrian. No explanation. Just a quiet axe. I sat there in my kitchen, still in my work shirt, cold coffee on the counter, rereading it 3 times. My hand itched to reply, to say something. Anything. Instead, I closed the laptop. The next day, another email came. This one from Miles' assistant. Subject, messaging alignment, launch presence, body. Please understand this isn't personal. Brand direction has evolved. We value your contributions. I stared at that line for a long time. This isn't personal. What was it then? I opened my planner. Flipped through every scribbled task from the last 6 weeks. Venue contract signed. Stage diagram revisions final. Talent NDA sent. Final invoice, pay before Friday. All of it in my handwriting. All of it mine. But my name wouldn't be on any press release. I wouldn't be on stage. I wouldn't even be in the room. That night, I didn't sleep much. I watched the city lights flicker through my blinds and thought about all the times I'd been told to sit down and be grateful. I'd built them a monument, and they'd fenced me out. Still, I said nothing. I did what I always did, opened my laptop and kept working. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who I was doing it for. I didn't act right away. At first, I just sat with it. The humiliation. The expense. The sheer absurdity of being cut out of something I had built from the ground up. But on Thursday night, I poured myself a drink and opened the folder where I'd kept every document related to the launch. Contracts, confirmations, receipts, wire transfers. I scrolled through line by line. Every single booking was in my name. The venue, leased under my LLC. The lighting company, signed off with my signature. The headline performer, contracted through my personal entertainment contact, paid from my account. Catering, fully non-refundable, but only to me. The brand video team, my retainer, my asset. They hadn't even bothered to move it over to corporate. Nobody had thought they'd need to, because I'd never said no before. But now I had options. I started with the venue. Hi, Jennifer, I said when the event coordinator picked up. I'm going to need to cancel the event reservation for next Friday. Yes, under Adrian Lawton. Correct. No, I understand the cancellation policy. That's fine. Click. Next was the lighting team. Hi Marcus, Adrian here. We're pulling out of the Lawton event. Yep, within the window. Feel free to rebook the gear. Then catering. Cancel the full menu. Yes, I'm aware of the deposit forfeiture. No, the client isn't continuing. I'm the client. Then the band. Then the projectionist. Then the aerialist Miles had insisted on for drama. One by one, I unraveled the web I had so carefully built. No angry emails. No dramatic declarations. Just a quiet, deliberate shutdown. There were no alerts sent to Miles. No system notifications pinging my father. They wouldn't even know anything was off until they walked into an empty room. By midnight, half the infrastructure was gone. The rest? Slated to vanish by morning. There was a strange calm in it. Like watching a tower you'd built slowly dismantle brick by brick, knowing you were the only one who ever knew how it stood in the first place. I didn't feel angry. Not exactly. What I felt was something deeper. Something colder. A realization. I had always been the safety net. The scaffolding. The one who showed up, paid up, and shut up. And they had counted on that. But this time, I was stepping away. Not to burn the thing down, but to let it collapse without me. And once the pieces hit the floor, they'd finally have to ask themselves, who built this in the first place? I turned off my phone that morning. No alarms. No notifications. Just silence. Outside, Chicago was waking up, buses rumbling past, joggers weaving through traffic, dogs pulling on leashes. I left my apartment and started walking. No destination. Just blocks and blocks of city, gray and unhurried, the way I liked it. Somewhere across town, guests were arriving at an empty venue. I pictured it as I walked. Executives in press suits stepping out of black SUVs, frowning at locked gates. Journalists craning their necks at a warehouse with no signage, no staff. Miles pacing, checking his phone, checking again. Dad arriving 20 minutes late, expecting applause. But there would be nothing. No lights. No music. No branded step and repeat. No champagne towers. Just an industrial husk echoing with confusion. And then the text would start. I didn't check my phone, but I felt it vibrate once, then again. Short buzzes. Long ones. Probably PR. Then the board. Then Miles. Then, finally, Dad. Calls, texts, voicemails, I imagined the sequence. Each one more frantic than the last. Each one trying to hold the illusion together just a little longer. I ducked into a coffee shop. Sat by the window. Watched the light move across the floor. I should have felt triumphant. But I didn't. All I felt was relief. Like exhaling after holding your breath for too many years. Like finally dropping a weight you forgot you were carrying. By noon, the group chats were probably imploding. News of the disaster would be crawling across investor dashboards. Rival companies would already be laughing. There would be no official explanation. Because no one else knew. Only me. That was the beauty of it. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I hadn't leaked a story or sent an angry email to the press. I hadn't stormed into the boardroom. I had simply stopped funding the illusion. And without me, it collapsed. I stayed out most of the day. Took the train up to Lincoln Park. Wandered through the paths, sat on a bench facing the lake. A little girl ran by chasing a kite. Her father trailing behind her, arms out. He laughed when the kite caught wind and soared. That used to be Miles and Dad, years ago. That used to be me too. But not anymore. When the sun started to dip, I walked home. Still no phone. Still no updates. Still peace. I made myself dinner, pasta, olive oil, no distractions. I sat at the counter and ate slowly, deliberately. Outside, the city kept humming. Eventually, I turned the phone back on. 39 missed calls. 17 voicemails. Over 100 texts. From Dad. From Miles. From the PR agency. I didn't open any of them. Not because I didn't care, but because for the first time in my life, they would have to sit with the mess they made and wonder who finally stopped cleaning it up. The phone rang again just after 10. This time, I answered. Adrian. My father's voice came through sharp and tight, like he was trying to stay calm and failing. What the hell did you do? I leaned against the counter, the glow of the streetlight outside pooling through the blinds. I hadn't turned on any lamps. I didn't need light to have this conversation. I didn't do anything, I said. You canceled everything, he snapped. The venue, the caterers, the entire goddamn event. There's press outside. Miles is having a meltdown. Do you understand what you've done? I could hear the background chaos. Raised voices, distant echoes, maybe the clinking of a glass being cleared too late. I kept my voice even. You told me I wasn't wanted. What? You said it was just pageantry, that I wouldn't enjoy it. Then the board said my presence would hurt the optics. So I respected that. He was silent for a beat. This isn't about optics anymore, Adrian. This is a PR disaster. I almost laughed. So now I matter. You always mattered, he said too quickly, like it was something he'd rehearsed. No, I was useful, I corrected. Not the same thing. He dropped the calm act. You're punishing us. You're punishing your brother. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't raise my voice. I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I just stopped paying for something I was deliberately excluded from. It wasn't personal. It was entirely personal, I cut in. You made it that way when you chose image over truth. You wanted the fantasy. The show. You wanted Miles smiling on stage while the real work stood in the shadows. You always liked being behind the scenes. No, I said. I accepted being behind the scenes because I thought it meant I was part of the family. That I was helping build something that belonged to all of us. He went quiet again. Then, quietly, almost a whisper, he asked, do you think this can be fixed? I let that sit between us. The long, bitter silence of a man who only calls when the sky is falling. No, I said. Because the only thing broken was me pretending it wasn't. You can't just walk away from your family, Adrian. I looked out the window, at the empty sidewalk, the soft flicker of a distant crosswalk signal. You walked away first, I said. You just did it with a smile and a press release. He didn't answer. I let the silence stretch one more beat, then ended the call. No slamming. No drama. Just a quiet click, and then nothing. I stood there for a while, phone in hand, breathing slow. For once, I didn't feel the need to fix it. For once, I let it stay broken. It was 4 days later when Miles showed up at my door. I heard the knock mid-morning, just after I'd gotten back from a grocery run. No call. No text. Just a shadow through the peephole, tall, expensive coat, hairstyled like he hadn't slept in days but still cared enough to try. I opened the door. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, face tight. Can I come in? He finally asked. I thought about it for a second, then stepped aside. He walked in like someone touring a crime scene, cautious, quiet, looking around like maybe he'd find the version of me he remembered tucked into a corner. He sat on the edge of the couch, didn't take his coat off. I stayed standing. The firm's in full damage control, he said, not looking at me. Dad's doing this decisive leadership act on every call, like anyone buys it. The investors are pissed. PR's scrambling to say it was a tech issue. I didn't say anything. He glanced up at me. You know they're blaming you, right? I tilted my head. That surprises you? He sighed and rubbed his hands over his face. I didn't want this to happen. You wanted me cut out. That was Dad's call. I crossed my arms. But you didn't object. He didn't answer. Instead, he looked down at the floor, shoulders slouched, voice soft. It was politics, Adrian. The board. The optics. We were trying to lock in a partnership. They thought it would look cleaner if it was just me out front. And you agreed, I said. He looked up. It wasn't about you. I laughed, short and humorless. It's always about me, Miles. When something needs fixing, it's me. When something goes wrong, it's me. When someone needs to disappear to keep the image clean, yeah, still me. I didn't ask you to pay for all of it, he said, defensive now. No, I said, but you let me. Like always. That shut him up. The quiet stretched. He looked smaller than usual. Not beaten, just exposed. Like the bright light he always stood under had finally turned on him. Did you ever intend to give me credit? I asked. Or reimbursement? He hesitated. Then, no. I nodded. Then why are you here? He opened his mouth. Closed it again. I watched him try to find something, some apology, some justification, some thread of our old brotherhood to pull on. But there was nothing left. I walked over and opened the door. Miles stood slowly, walked past me without another word. At the threshold, he turned slightly. "You could have ruined me." "I didn't," I said. He looked like he wanted to argue, but instead, he just stepped out into the hallway. I shut the door behind him, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the brother cleaning up the mess. I felt like a man who finally stopped pretending it wasn't one. I waited one more day. Not for drama. Not to let the dust settle. I just needed time to make sure it was clean. No loopholes. No spin. On Monday morning, I sat at my desk, opened a blank document, entitled it, Clarification on Launch Event and Resignation of Unofficial Duties. No bold fonts. No emotion. Just the truth. I listed the launch timeline, the expenditures I fronted, the vendors I booked under my personal accounts, the full breakdown of assets removed before the event, attached receipts, signed agreements, screenshots of emails, texts, even the polite dismissal from the firm's counsel that asked me not to attend my own project. No anger. No accusations. Just documentation. Just math. Then I wrote the final paragraph. Effective immediately, I am withdrawing from all silent or unofficial roles connected to Lawton and Price. I will no longer provide operational, financial, or strategic support outside of formal engagement and compensation. This includes all advisory or informal contributions requested by family or executive members. This is not a resignation of employment, because I was never employed. This is a resignation of invisible labor. Then I hit send. BCC'd it to every senior manager, partner, board member, and shareholder I had an email for. No copy to Dad. No separate message for Miles. Not this time. The fallout was immediate. The read receipts rolled in within minutes. A flurry of "can we talk?" emails followed, some polite, some not. I ignored them all. Then came the calls. My work phone lit up like a Christmas tree. I turned it over on the table, let it vibrate against the wood. The message wasn't for them to negotiate. It was for me to be heard. Within 2 hours, someone forwarded me an internal thread between a regional VP and the head of compliance. Was Adrian actually the funding source for the launch? Does legal know this? Someone else replied, "We've been referencing him in vendor payments without his name on record." Is that even allowed? By lunchtime, the firm's internal Slack had locked down several channels. Word was spreading. The event failure wasn't being blamed on logistics anymore. It wasn't a tech glitch. Wasn't weather. It was a choice. Mine. By mid-afternoon, my mother called. I didn't answer. Her voicemail was soft, rehearsed. "Honey, your father's very upset. Everyone's saying you sent something around that's been misinterpreted. Maybe we can sit down and discuss." Delete. Later that evening, I opened my email one more time. A new message from one of the old VPs who used to call me kid during board dinners. "Adrian, just read your memo. Respect." That was long overdue. Short. No flattery. No request. Just recognition. I leaned back in my chair. Closed the laptop. For the first time in my adult life, I had spoken with my full voice. No filters. No family optics. Just truth. And I didn't need applause. I just needed to know they couldn't ignore me anymore. I moved out of Chicago 2 weeks later. No announcement. No farewell dinner. Just a quiet drive west with whatever fit in my car. I found a small town in Colorado, nothing dramatic. Just a place where the sky opened wide and people didn't ask what your last name meant. I got a cheap apartment above a bakery and took a consulting job with a startup that didn't care who my father was. My title didn't matter. The hours were normal. The stress was tolerable. Most days, I closed my laptop before dinner. I bought a motorcycle. Not a flashy one. Just enough engine to get me up the hills without rattling my bones. I rode on weekends, sometimes into the canyons, sometimes nowhere in particular. I started taking photos with an old film camera I found in a thrift store. Landscapes. Trees. Broken signs. Quiet things. For once, I wasn't cleaning up someone else's mess. I wasn't covering for a sibling or rewriting a press statement at 3 a.m. I was just Adrian. Every now and then, I'd get a text from a distant cousin or one of the more removed board members. "Hey, heard what happened, hope you're okay." Or, "You were always the sharp one. Let me know if you want to catch up." I never responded. Some relatives were bolder. A second cousin sent me a message that said, "The family's still hurting from all this, you know. But I get it." Get what? I didn't reply. I wasn't angry. Just done. Word eventually reached me about the acquisition. The conglomerate Dad had been courting past. The failed launch had been their excuse. They pulled their interest 2 days after the event. Analysts cited leadership instability. Someone on Twitter posted a photo of the empty venue, tagged it with "Lawton collapse," and it went viral for about a weekend. The company didn't implode, not entirely, but it limped. Investors backed off. Internal morale tanked. Miles went quiet on social media. Even Dad stopped giving quotes to the business pages. That part didn't give me any satisfaction. It was just what happened when you built a house on a borrowed foundation. One afternoon, maybe 3 months later, I saw my name in a headline. A silent architect, the man behind the Lawton implosion. It was in some glossy industry magazine. I skimmed the piece at a gas station, standing under buzzing fluorescent lights. They painted me as a cautionary tale. Or maybe a legend. I wasn't sure. I bought a granola bar and left the magazine behind. Back in my apartment, I developed a roll of film. A shot from the last ride. Winding road, late light. My shadow stretched long across the asphalt. I looked at it for a while. Then I smiled, folded the print in half, and threw it away. It was a Sunday morning when the letter arrived. No return address, just my name written in tight, neat handwriting that hadn't changed since I was a kid. I knew it was from him before I even opened it. I sat at the table, coffee in hand, sun pouring through the window. The envelope sat there like a challenge. I waited a minute, then another. Then I opened it. It started the way those letters always do, full of soft regret and hard justifications. Adrian, I never meant to hurt you. It was complicated. I did what I thought was best for the family. I stopped reading after the first paragraph. Same voice. Same dance. Even now, after all of it, he was still trying to make the blame a circle, shared, abstract, weightless. I looked at the paper in my hands. Crisp. Expensive. The kind he always used for holiday cards and business notes. As if the packaging might dress up the apology. Then I stood up, walked to the shredder, and fed it through without a word. The soft whir of the blades was the only sound in the room. As the last of the paper disappeared, I whispered to myself, I'm not your shadow anymore. And I meant it. I had spent too many years following behind him, covering his missteps, carrying the weight of a name that never felt like mine. All to uphold a legacy that was only ever built for Miles. But I wasn't part of that mythology anymore. I didn't belong in that glass house of men who measured love and profits and respect in silence. I rinsed out my coffee mug, threw on my jacket, and grabbed my helmet from the hook by the door. Outside, the air was clean and still. The mountain roads were calling, sharp curves, empty lanes, no destination but forward. I climbed onto my bike, turned the key, and let the engine settle into a low, steady hum. Then I took off. No more ghosts. No more family scripts. No more waiting to be seen. Just the road and the wind and the long, beautiful quiet of being free.